Really, this is amazing. I had no idea how amazing this was going to be, and I'm going to tell everybody when I get home. I promise you. I thank you for having me. I'm overwhelmed to be able to speak to you and to be given a degree by this university, which so obviously and in every way represents what's great about this country and Central Asia. Thank you. I got to tell you, I'm a little nervous up here, and it reminds me of a story about one of the popes, Pope John Paul II. And when he was named the Pope in 1978, somebody walked up to him and said, "Well, how do you feel being named the Pope?" And the Pope was a little nervous, and he said, "I wish I'd studied harder." And I'm not the Pope, but I think I know how he felt that day. It's humbling and it's intimidating to be with a group of people as impressive and hardworking and full of energy and full of life as all of you. Congratulations. I wish I'd studied harder. I haven't been here. I haven't been to Kyrgyzstan in a long time. It was 2002. I was a reporter at the New York Times. My editor asked me to write a story about a small country in Central Asia that at the time contained 2 foreign military bases, one American, one Russian, just a few miles apart. What's going on in that place? The editor wanted to know. So I came, and I remember very well when I arrived here. I was terrified. I'd never been here. I didn't speak the language. As you can see, I don't speak the language today. I didn't know anyone, and I was a little afraid. But Kyrgyzstan, as I discovered, is a magical place. And I ended up staying in this part of the world, in Central Asia and the Middle East, for most of the next decade. I'm grateful for that. In America today, commencement ceremonies like this one are taking place all across the country. And most of them in America unfold in pretty much the same way. The university invites a famous or accomplished person to send their graduates on their way. And almost always the speaker delivers an inspirational message about all the wonders and glories that await the graduates in their lives ahead. About how if everybody works hard, everything will turn out well. Seize your dreams, the speakers tell the graduates, and let nothing stand in your way. America is a large and lucky country, and these speeches, but not always, but usually, they're kind of fairy tales. And they're happy stories with happy endings where the good guys always win. I could do that today. I could tell you to seize your dreams and let nothing stand in your way. I hope nothing does stand in your way. I could tell you a fairy tale. But I don't want to do that, if you'll forgive me. Kyrgyzstan is not America. And I suspect that most of you have seen too much of the real world, and you're a little too grown up to want to hear a bedtime story. So I want to talk to you instead about the real world that you're about to step into. You're graduating from a prestigious university, and you're a group of very talented people. You would be forgiven if your eyes were focused on the horizon in front of you, on landing a good job and building a life for yourself, maybe going abroad, and maybe also taking care of your family. But what's happening in the world today is too serious to ignore. There's a huge battle going on, and it's pulling more and more of the world into it. The United States, Russia, China, Europe, Central Asia. Across the world, in places where democratic governments have prevailed for years, even decades, leaders are closing newspapers. They're demonizing and even jailing their opponents. And they're grabbing control of institutions like the courts and television stations, and they're bullying people like judges and editors to fall into line. Often these men, and they're always men, are charismatic and they're even charming. And they've built their careers on claiming to speak for the people, the real people, the forgotten people. And by saying things, sometimes rude and impolite things, that no other politician before them had ever dared say. And while doing these things, these leaders are quietly making it difficult for anyone else to check their power or to remove them from office. They're laying the foundations for their permanent rule. And all the while, at the very same time, they're using their offices to enrich themselves and their friends. Believe me, I've seen this with my own eyes. For several years, I lived in Istanbul, in Turkey. It's one of the most amazing and beautiful cities in the world. When I arrived in Turkey in 2002, it was the hope of the world, a boisterous and hopeful democracy. Today, Turkey is a different place on a different path. These days, in Istanbul, whenever I go to someone's house for an interview, people do the same and the strangest thing. They greet me, they let me inside, and then they take their cell phone and they put it in the refrigerator and they close the door. Why on earth would somebody want to do that? You've already guessed. Because people are so afraid that their government is listening. Let me give you another example. One that I think will hit home here. Hungary. It's in the heart of Europe. It's a beautiful and sophisticated place. It's part of the European Union. In Hungary, the president there has silenced the press, he's co-opted his opposition, and he's attacked the judiciary. In December, he forced American University of Central Europe, your sister institution, to close up and move away. American University was a free and vibrant place just like this is, and the president didn't like that, and nobody could stop it. Lots of things are fueling this new wave of demagogues who are washing up everywhere. There's corruption by our leaders, we all know that. There's a feeling that the rules of the game are rigged, and that people who play by those rules are only naive. In all the places I just mentioned, enough people are genuinely angry that these leaders have just enough voters behind them, just enough loyalists, that they can plausibly claim to be acting in the name of the people. I was born in the United States. It's the oldest democracy in the world. Democracy in America is in our blood. We take it for granted. And I never thought I would see a time when I thought democracy might perish in the United States. But today, I'm afraid. We have a president who lies every day, and every day he gets stronger. Watching our president is like watching an old movie about the Soviet Union. Perhaps some of you here remember those movies. I used to think that could never happen in the United States. But now, sometimes I fear it's too late, that we'll never get back to where we were. What's most depressing about these stories is how easy it's been for these leaders to gather power, and how good people have stood by and done nothing. There's a famous writer in the West, his name is William Butler Yeats, and he wrote a poem about how the world finally comes to an end. The best lack all conviction, Yeats wrote, and the worst are full of passionate intensity. And that's the world we live in today. The bad guys have all the energy. So you're probably thinking, class of 2019, what's this got to do with me? Friends, let me tell you, there's no hiding from this fight. It doesn't matter where you are, New York or London or Bishkek or Tashkent, or where you're going. Some of you are probably thinking after graduating you're going abroad, to work or to study, you're going to the United States, you're going to Europe, you're going to Russia. Do it, by all means. See the world. Grab every chance you can. But you're not going to escape this fight. It's going to follow you there. It's in Europe. It's in America. It's certainly in Russia. If you stay here in Central Asia, I guarantee you it's coming here. The fight for democracy, and that's the fight for ordinary people like you and me to chart our futures, it's raging across the world. So what can we do, right? What can we learn from all this? What's the lesson? The most important one is this, I think. It's the one rule to remember. Wherever you are, question authority. Wherever you are, interrogate power. Demand the power justify itself. Whenever you're confronted by someone seeking political power, it's a good idea to have a conversation with yourself. Who is this person who wants to be my leader? How did he get here? And who else, standing behind him, possibly in the shadows, stands to gain if he gets this job? If you start hearing those classic catchphrases, "I'm speaking for the forgotten people," who exactly is this leader talking about? And when this man who is running for office says, "They are holding me back and they are keeping me down," ask yourself, who exactly is keeping him down? Does he mean Muslims? Does he mean Jews? All of you went to this university to get the tools to enable you to find the truth. And that's the whole purpose of a university education. Power, often, is wrapped in lies. And when you're confronted with power, strip away those lies. One of the most amazing things I ever witnessed as a journalist was called the Cedar Revolution in Lebanon in 2005. It happened after the prime minister there, Rafik Hariri, was assassinated in mysterious circumstances. Many powerful people were lying about it, and the Lebanese people rose up. Like never before, millions of people went into the streets to demand answers. One night, there was a vigil for the fallen president, and I stopped a young woman who was holding a candle, and her name was Nadia Shukri. She was a student, 20 years old, the same age as many of you. And I asked her, "What do you want?" She thought for a long time, and then she said, "We want the truth." And that was all. And people like Nadia made a revolution. Let's remember the lesson of Nadia Shukri, our Lebanese friend. Don't be afraid to confront power. Don't be afraid to make trouble. Find the truth. I feel like, to a certain extent, I'm preaching to the converted here. You people in Kurdistan, you already know what I'm talking about. You, the graduates, and your parents. You've had more than your share of experiences with dictators and with democratically elected leaders whose heads got too big. On at least 2 occasions, Kyrgyzstan set an example for the world. So, young graduates, class of 2019, let me finish by saying this. People of the older generation may be the ones with the money and the power. That's always true. But this is about you and your future. You people here, gathered in this graduation ceremony, are the best and the brightest that your countries can offer. You're the hope of the future. You're young, you're full of life. The world needs you. It's your fight too. Thank you.